How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I am an avid herpetologist. It's another new Digimon format with the EX4 set releasing just a week or two ago, and you know what that means. That means it is time to update our Machinedramon deck to compete in this new format. Now, Machinedramon has very much been a pet deck of mine. I've been loving playing this deck ever since it was released back in the EX1 format when the archetype first was given shape. And now here we are in EX4. The deck has finally got the tools that it needs to become a very serious, very real, meta-relevant contender. Now, all of the things that I have always enjoyed about this archetype are very relevant still today. This deck is still one of the most diverse archetypes you will find, with a ton of different ways to actually build the deck. Lots of different tech options being usable at all different levels. Now, my personal list has not really changed a whole lot since the last format, BT12. I was running a very Chaosdramon heavy, very Chaosdramon centric list, and that is still going to be the case as we proceed into EX4. However, some of the commentary that I had in my BT12 deck profile mentioned that there's going to be certain changes as the meta shifts moving into the EX4 format. Now there's going to be a new top dog fighting for the top slot in the meta, and that, of course, is going to be Shinedragon with the release of Shinedragon Ruin Mode. This is only going to become even more true as we move into the BT13 meta, and Shinedragon also gains access to Burst Mode, as well as another whole new line for its stack building. Now, Machinedramon is actually one of the best contenders to help fight against that top meta deck, since we have one of the few cards in the entire game that still has immunity to DP reduction. So this is definitely going to be a good, safe pick as you move into that new format, as long as you are willing to get good with the deck. Machinedramon does still have the same issues that it has had in previous sets, where this is still a very difficult deck to pilot. This is not a very easy deck to learn. There are a lot of moving parts. So for certain players, this is simply not going to be a deck they want to be dedicating a whole lot of time to, and of course that's completely fine. But for those of us who have been Machinedramon stands for the longest time, we have taken the time and have gotten to know our decks inside and out. This is definitely going to be our time to shine. Now, you guys may notice I've got a beautiful new playmat debuting for the first time on this channel. I want to say a big thank you to Silvermoon, a good friend of mine, for helping procure this playmat for me. I have him to thank for this, and it has absolutely been a favorite of mine. I love this design so very much, very intense looking. But anyways, with these all formalities out of the way, we're going to go ahead and move into our deck profile. As usual, we're going to be going through each of our card choices. Now, since I've done quite a few Machinedramon deck profiles on the channel, we'll be abbreviating certain aspects of the video, and I'll be talking a little bit more about certain tech choices. So let's go ahead and get into it. For my 4 eggs, I am staying the same as I did last format. I'm actually opting for 4 copies of Hopmon from EX2. Now, many Machinedramon lists out there are currently going to be running 4 copies of Dorumon. This is kind of the standard for what you're going to see Machinedramon lists running at this point. Now, the card draw is, of course, going to be excellent still. It's always good to have a little bit of extra card draw in your deck. However, in this particular list, the extra DP boost is still going to be incredibly beneficial. I'm actually choosing to save some of my cyborg slots at level 5 for other inheritables. I'm choosing to cut down to only a single DP boost inheritable, and that's because I am playing DP boosts at other areas of my stack. Hopmon is fantastic. He's going to be helping us get to certain breakpoints very consistently, as long as we, of course, have our analog mans in play, which we are hoping that we will. But even if not, we do have other DP boosts available to us. Hopmon is going to be able to allow our Chaosdramons to hit our 13k DP threshold for one of our rookies consistently. I was running Hopmon last format. I very much enjoyed it, and I will be continuing to run 4 copies of Hopmon moving forward. Getting into the primary deck, let's start with our rookies. Now, I am going to be playing a total of 10 rookies, starting with 4 copies of Dorumon. Now, Dorumon is very rare to find outside of a full 4 copies these days. Now that Chaosdramon X is part of the meta, Dorumon is a fantastic addition to Machinedramon. Being able to digivolve into regular Chaosdramon for only a cost of 3, as well as into Chaosdramon X for a cost of 1, is absolutely phenomenal, not even mentioning the fact that when you have Chaosdramon X in play and Dorumon in your stack, you will also be able to gain a free memory every single turn at the start of your turn just by using its start of main phase ability to tuck a source. So Dorumon has easily become one of the best, most powerful rookies that you can play in Machinedramon. We will, of course, still be playing a full 4 copies. Now, again, Machinedramon is a very diverse deck. There's plenty of cards you can also be running in the rookie slot. I am still opting for a full 4 copies of Sunarizamon promo. Now, this promo does double duty. It is super aggressive in this list. First of all, while in play, all of your black Digimon that have 13,000 DP or more are going to gain piercing, so it's an automatic piercing ability if you're pushing it up from the raising area with a stack already in play. And it's inheritable, of course. While this Digimon is black and has 13,000 DP or more, it gains an extra security check. So both of these go hand in hand. It's really nice when you can have one in the stack and one in play, because of course then you're benefiting from both piercing and the ability to check an extra security. We are really trying to lean into this extra security check in this list. I'm gearing my particular Machinedramon list to be hyper aggressive. I've got lots of extra security checks in here. We want to be absolutely thrashing our opponent's security as fast as we can, and abusing the fact that Machinedramon is naturally very bulky and hard to break through. Certain decks just very simply aren't going to be able to break through your single Machinedramon stack, so having that extra aggression where you can smash your opponent's security into oblivion and end the game before they have a chance to recover is of course going to be very ideal. Now, we are going to still be running 2 single copies of Hagurumon. Hagurumon is still a phenomenal filter card. It's going to be great for when you do get those hands with a lot of level 5s that you need to unclog. Hagurumon, I think, has become a little bit less ideal now that we have access to Analog Man, and of course we are still playing copies of Guardromon, so Hagurumon isn't quite as needed as it used to be, which is why I have cut this down to only 2 copies. Ideally, I want to be playing this for 3 when I need to, not necessarily putting in the stack. I would like to have my value inheritables if possible, but having the extra rookie bodies, of course, being able to digivolve those onto something in raising is always going to be appreciated in a pinch. Now, moving into our champions, I'm actually cutting my copies of Guardromon down this format. We are only going to be playing 3. So we are down to a total of 8 champions, and I think 3 copies of Guardromon feels just about right. I really haven't regretted cutting the extra copy. So we're playing 3 copies of this. It's still, of course, our blocker, that phenomenal inheritable to discard any machine or cyborg on attack to draw 2 cards. It keeps our card advantage engines going, sets up for additional stacks, set up for our Chaosdramon X's. And then for the other champion slot, I'm actually now going to be playing 3 copies of Jazardmon. Now, Jazardmon has an on-play that is kind of irrelevant. It's only going to really be able to add other copies of itself, but if you do happen to hard play this from your hand, technically you are required to trigger it. It reveals the top 4 cards of your deck, lets you add any Digimon with Rock Dragon, Earth Dragon, Bird Dragon, Machine Dragon, or Sky Dragon in its traits, and a Hina among them to your hand. Then you can play the rest at the bottom in any order. As I mentioned, the only cards we can actually add off of this are Jazard itself, but for the record, it is required that you trigger this when it comes into play. Now, Jazardmon has an inheritable ability on both turns. While this Digimon has an on-play effect, it gains an additional 1,000 DP. So once again, I'm not really playing too many additional DP buffs in my ultimate slots. I'm keeping my cyborg inheritables towards other things, but having access to Hopmons and Jazardmons means that not only is our Chaosdramon likely to be hitting 13,000 DP consistently, but if I have both of these cards in a single stack, it means that our BT11 Machinedramons are going to be able to hit 13k and gain this extra security attack as well. It's a nice little buff. It's been phenomenal. It's been doing absolutely insane for me. This list has already been able to top 1 locals. I've taken first place once, hopefully a few more as the weeks progress. But Jazardmon has absolutely earned its spot. I have been loving using this card, and the fact that it's on both turns mean it does make your stack a little bit more challenging to get over. So yeah, an extra plus 1,000 DP on both turns. Absolutely love it. It's super, super nice. The last 2 copies of our champions we're going to be running are 2 copies of Mercurymon. I began playing this card as soon as BT12 dropped, and I have not gone back. Mercurymon is exceptional. Now, Mercurymon in my particular list is still going to be taking the place of Attack of the Heavy Mobile Digimon. I am still very much of the mindset that unless you are leaning hard into the EX1 Machinedramon game plan, you really would prefer to be having hybrids over that Blitz option. The Blitz option takes a lot more in order to set up and actually make use of, and it is also a much larger drain on the resources in your hand. Being able to hybrid for game is definitely a much easier route to go than just having to hold up all of those resources the whole game. Plus, Mercurymon, rather than being a brick outside of those circumstances, is still going to allow me to stack build if I need him to. Ideally, what I'm going to want to do is hold at least 1 copy of him up and then save him for that last blitz at the end of the game. But of course, if I need him in order to smooth out my stack building, he's going to be able to serve that role as well. So 2 copies of Mercurymon is going to finish up my champions. Moving on to blockers, we are still, of course, playing a single copy of Andromon, 2 copies of EX1 MetalTyrannomon, and 1 copy of EX1 MetalMamemon. The tried and true EX1 cyborgs, you should never be playing, I think, less than 3 minimum. You should at least have one of each. I am still choosing to play 2 copies of MetalTyrannomon over a copy of Gigadramon from BT11, just because the on Digivolve can be very helpful. If I'm keeping a hand that has a lot of level 5s and maybe lower cards, but doesn't necessarily have the level 6s yet, these cards will help you dig to get there. I'm always happy to Digivolve into these. However, I have ended up cutting one of my Andromon, just because we now have a pretty nice alternative to the structure deck Megadramon. And we also don't necessarily need to have that digging quite as much as we used to. However, there's also going to be games where I really don't want to be digging too much more, because we are going to be churning through our deck fast these days. We are simply going to be churning through cards faster than we know what to do with, and sometimes you just want to have other cards to Digivolve into. Speaking of which, the alternative blocker is going to be a brand new card, and that is MetalGreymon from EX4. Now, this MetalGreymon is literally the exact same as our structure deck Megadramon, having identical stats. However, it is also going to have blocker inherently while it is in play, making it a strict upgrade. You don't have to worry about the when digivolving effect. We are not playing Alter S, but the fact that it does come with inherent blocker is going to make it an easy upgrade to swap in over structure deck Megadramon. I am still playing 2 reboot and 2 blocker inheritables. Blocker and reboot, of course, is going to make us a lot harder to kill while we are working on smashing through our opponent's security, so giving them less options to retaliate with. Now we're going to move on into the cyborgs that we are going to be playing multiple copies of. We are, of course, still playing 2 copies of our Attack Unsuspended Inheritable with BT8 MetalGreymon. Cannot wait for the new alternate art. We are also playing 2 copies of BT9 Megadramon. We have plenty of Tamers that cost 3 or less still running around in the format. So 2 copies of Megadramon is definitely my recommendation. You are not going to want less than 2. Hunters and Crossheart are both still very meta relevant. Beelzemon is still running around, as well as quite a few other options. So definitely want to be playing 2 copies of Megadramon for the Tamer removal. We are playing 2 copies of MetalTyrannomon from BT11, possibly the most aggressive inheritable the deck has gotten in quite a while, being able to trash opponent's security. These effects stat up super fast, and the on-play when digivolving still comes in clutch once in a while. We are going to be playing a single copy of Volcanomon for the security inheritable, and right along with that, we still have a copy of Megadramon, again for another security plus inheritable, giving us a total of 4, in addition to our 4 copies of Sunarizamon. We are going to be playing a single DP boost in the form of MetalGreymon Secret Rare from BT1. We are playing a single copy of the Piercing Inheritable MetalGreymon from EX1. And to wrap up our cyborgs, we are playing a total of 16. I am actually choosing to tech in a single copy of MetalGreymon from BT7. Now, it has been a minute since this card has seen any play in any of my Machinedranon lists, but the games that I've been playing with this card, I have not been disappointed. We're finally in a format where I think using this card is going to be very nice. Being able to, number one, be a cyborg that can be played from your hand for only a cost of 5 if you have a Tamer in play, already very nice. This is also going to be an extra memory resource. This can not only be phenomenal for extending plays in general, but it's also going to be able to give us that 1 extra memory if we are ready to Mercurymon for game. So this MetalGreymon has absolutely been putting in work. I would highly recommend giving him a try if your list allows for it, but this is definitely where a lot of Machinedranon lists have gotten the most cloggy. There are a lot of options to choose from in the level 5 slots these days, but these are the 16 that I'm going to be running. It's been a very aggressive, very powerful playstyle, and I'm absolutely loving it. All right, moving into level 6s, we are going to be playing 3 copies of Machinedramon from BT11. This is going to be up from 2 copies that I was playing last format. I have definitely been undervaluing this card in previous formats. The Mill 5 is just utterly phenomenal. Being able to digivolve this onto a stack and try to find your Chaosdramons, not only that, but also setting up, of course, plenty of cyborgs in your trash when you are ready to digivolve into Chaosdramon is awesome. This card is fantastic, and I have definitely been missing out not playing 3 copies prior, but we are going to be playing 3 copies now. Now, I do still believe that your mega slots can potentially become a bit clogged and a bit cluttered, so do be careful with how many megas that you are playing. I am actually going to be playing a total of 10 this format. Speaking of which, we are playing a single copy of EX1 Machinedramon. He is back from the brink. I was not playing Machinedramon last format, and to be honest, I did not miss it. A lot of his biggest benefits were not really necessary during the last format, so I wound up cutting him just to save space for other things. However, as I mentioned, we are now back into a format where Shine Greymon is going to be a top deck, and DP reduction effects are going to be more common. Machinedramon is going to be our biggest counter to that, being able to, of course, keep his protection effects, making sure that he can protect himself if he would be destroyed, while also having that unique effect to stop his DP from being reduced. So I have found that one copy is just about right. We're going through our decks incredibly fast as it is, thanks to our BT11 Machinedramons, so I think just one is fine. You're very likely to see it as long as it's not in your security. So I've been playing one copy and I've been very happy with it. We're still playing a full 4 copies of Chaosdramon from EX3. Chaosdramon is very much the centerpiece of this deck these days. His abilities are just absolutely stellar. Being able to tuck 3 sources on Digivolve to Ultimate Flare one of your opponent's Digimon, Digivolve 3. That he has very much become a card that every deck in the format has to respect, or they are going to get blown out. He's basically the reason this deck has become the giant threat that it is. It's got so many diverse tools available to it, and no matter what you are going to be doing in your lower slots, Chaosdramon is the card your opponent is going to fear. So definitely still playing 4 copies, and we are also playing 2 copies of Chaosdramon X-Antibody. This card is just as strong as I knew it was going to be, if not even stronger. Being able to Digivolve for 2 onto any of your Machinedramon or Chaosdramons, and if you happen to have your EX1 Machinedramon in play with a Chaosdramon on top of it, Chaosdramon X will then maintain the protections of both of these cards. It will keep the DP reduction protection, as well as the ability to keep itself from leaving play by getting bounced, tucked, or destroyed, making it an almost impervious wall that your opponent simply will not be able to smash through. It's extra aggressive with its potential on deletion effect, being able to trash opponent security on top of all of your other security removal effects. So if you happen to be punching into security and it would be destroyed, you can then trash another security on top of that, making it even more likely you can close the game out. Chaosdramon X is amazing, so that is going to be my mega lineup. And of course, what would a Machinedramon deck be without a full 4 copies of Analog Man? Another card I definitely undervalued when it was first spoiled. Analog Man being able to redirect potentially multiple attacks all to your level 6 machines forces your opponent to really have to think through their play lines. They can't just keep swinging security, especially when your redirects could potentially be trashing security through BT11 MetalTyrannomon. So Analog Man is what makes this deck able to be everything that it is. It definitely ties the strategy together in a way that I could not have possibly seen coming. This card is an absolute unit, not only giving us memory advantage every turn, making us, of course, very difficult to kill. It's honestly still one of the biggest gatekeepers for pilots who are very good with Machinedramon and pilots who are still practicing. Being able to discern when you need to use the Analog Man effect is part of what makes a good pilot truly great. You don't want to be activating Analog Man's effect every single turn. There are going to be situations, number one, where you want to be holding cyborgs up and using them on future turns. You may not necessarily need that memory advantage on that particular turn. It may be a situation where you may actually want less memory in order to choke your opponent out. So learning when to activate Analog Man can actually be a very big learning curve as you're trying to get better with Machinedramon. So I would suggest practice a lot and definitely start trying to look at each one of your turns and really asking whether or not Analog Man is absolutely necessary. There are going to be times where you need to dig, times where you need the extra memory, but there are going to be times where it is actually more beneficial to hold back on pitching your level 5s. So definitely keep an eye open for that as you're practicing. And lastly, of course, we are still playing 2 copies of Black Memory Boost. There's only a couple of cards in the deck that this card is not able to grab. They're all right here, our Megadramon and 3 copies of MetalGreymon, but everything else, all of our other Digimon, we are able to pick up with our memory boost, and of course having that 2 extra memory in the pocket is still just as powerful as it has always been. Black Memory Boost and the Memory Boost as a whole have proven themselves to be very powerful format staples, and yeah, I'm going to be playing 2 copies of them this format, not only to smooth out my draws, but give me that extra burst on turns when I need it. But yeah, that's going to about do it, guys. This is going to be my Machinedramon list as we move into the EX4 format and prepare for the BT13 format that's coming in a couple of weeks. A lot of the tech choices in this deck have been doing very well, and as we are moving into a new format, especially with BT13 coming up, with new decks beginning to vie for competitive use up at the top of the heap, being able to alter our tech choices and adjust our playstyles is going to be what keeps this deck relevant. Practice with it, get good with it, and hey, share some of your own personal tech choices down in the comments below. I know I've got a great community in my Discord who are sharing their lists all the time, and I love seeing the variation. This is still easily one of the most diverse and difficult to build decks in the entire game. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. Hope you guys are sticking around for the next video. If you do like this video, feel free to like and subscribe to the channel. With that, I'm an avid herpetologist. Thank you all so much for joining me. Hope you have a great rest of your night, and I will see you all next time.